What makes the E say E? Can you pull them over together? What word is that?
Eat.
Eat. My mom has been she retired from teaching about 10 years ago, but she was a teacher for, I'm going to say 30 years. She started teaching in the 80s. So when I was a kid, she was a classroom teacher. She was a classroom teacher all throughout her career. And, I would see her with others, with her students in the classroom. And then I would also see like adults come up to her and say, hi, Miss Smith, you changed my life. You were the best teacher I ever had. And I was just like always blown away. Like, this is my mom, but all these people are coming up to her. Like, I felt like it was all the time when we would go out in public.
Did your parents' example of being teachers, is that something you saw, and you saw the respect that your mother received as a teacher and thought, that's something I'd like to have?
When I was a kid, we would play school. Like, we would play school because I would see my mom doing it. I was like, oh, that's cool. So I'd take the books, at home, and I would play with my younger brother, not realizing that I actually was teaching him how to read. So by the time he went to kindergarten, he was able to read already because we had been kind of practicing in the basement, and so I always say he was my first student, because I had that chance to teach him how to read, and I didn't even realize what I was doing. He's 7 years younger than me. I like being fancy. What's wrong with it? How did you know that, Kennedy?
It seems that because so many of us have the skill to be able to read, it's a skill that we seem to take for granted. Can you explain a little bit just how difficult the skill of reading and reading well is?
Reading requires your mind to do a lot of different things all at once. And I kind of compare it to driving. Like, when we're first driving, we're just kind of learning and everything is difficult. But after we get that under our belts, it's like we can just drive without thinking about it. So proficient readers, they can just read without thinking about it. And so that's why we forget how difficult it was in the beginning, because it's become for us a skill. That's something that we can just do without thinking about it. Whereas with kids who haven't really mastered reading yet, they have to think about it every step of the way. And that's what's so challenging. So I think, it requires a teacher to really dig in, teach kids how words work. That's probably our first step. Like, how do letters work? How do words work? And then kids need tons of exposure with different types of books, and they need to be able to write as well.
Every learner is an important core concept in Valley View schools. Explain how your job in particular meets the individual needs of a learner.
You notice that even though that word starts with a capital letter, it's still what word? And. As reading recovery teachers, that is really a blessing to us, because we get to know each kid, specifically where they are, what they need. And every day our lesson plan is different. So like what you saw today, I'm going to take what I saw that student do today, and I'm going to adjust to meet her needs for tomorrow. And so that's something that, on an individual basis we can do. But even in my small groups, when I watch, I observe, I take notes, so that tomorrow I can come back and I can go over, review some of those strategies that we were working on today that maybe they still need practice with.
Let's say that you are organizing your books and you have to decide which book goes on top of your own personal stack of books. Which book goes on top of the stack?
The book that I would choose is a book that I do not have in my possession, and it makes me so sad. It's a book called Moose's Loose Tooth. When I was a kid, my mom used to read me this story all the time called Moose's Loose Tooth, and I loved it. And then one day I went to read it to my brother, and I realized that it didn't have any words. And so it was a wordless book that she had been creating. It almost makes me want to cry right now. She had been creating this story for years, because it was like my favorite book as a kid. And then when I finally, because my brother's 7 years younger than me, when I finally got ready to read it, I was like, what happened? There are no words here. And she's like, I've been creating this story. This story is a wordless story. And so over the years, I have taken that on in the classroom and used lots of wordless stories, because that was like That was my favorite book as a child. And it really just kind of made me realize how powerful words can be and how we can create stories in our own minds and how we can use illustrations to kind of guide our thoughts as we are creating those stories.